Coal is the world's most abundant fossil fuel, more abundant even than coal and natural gases. It has been an essential resource since the 1880s. In the 1950s, coal mostly powered steam engines, heated buildings, and generated electricity. Coal is used in many places around the world, including America, Asia, and much of Europe. Coal accounts for 70% of electricity in America, 80% in Asia, and 82% in many parts of Europe. The need for coal has decreased through the years, and new methods of creating power have been sprouting. Eventually, there may not be a need for coal at all. However, coal has worked for us for many years, and we wouldn't be where we are today without it. Coal powers our homes.
Coal mining can be very dangerous and cause various diseases such as black lung and silicosis. Black lung is caused by long-term exposure to coal dust. The most severe version of black lung, scarring causes lung volume to shrink, further damaging adjacent lung tissue and making air exchange even worse. There is no cure for the black lung disease, but medications such as inhaled steroids can help patients breathe more easily. More severe cases can require oxygen and possibly lung transplants. In 1999, about 409 workers died from black lung, but over time the number decreased, and in 2016, about 112 people died from the disease. Some of the most common symptoms include shortness of breath, decreased exercise tolerance, chronic cough, coughing up phlegm, and inability to breathe lying flat. Other risks of being in coal mines includes inhaling toxic gases such as methane, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen sulfide, being crushed by roof falls or mining equipment, drowning when tunnels fill with water, and injury in fires and explosions. Even if miners survive the workplace, they may suffocate to death years later. Air pollution from coal-fired power plants have been known to cause asthma, cancer, heart and lung ailments, neurological problems, and acid rain, global warming, and other severe environmental and public health impacts. When miners inhale dust, it deposits along their airways. Their bodies try to remove the dust by sending in special white blood cells, called macrophages, to engulf and chemically digest it. But the cells are unable to break down the dust, so they die and release enzymes that damage lung tissue.
I'm such a good coal miner. My shift ends at 12 today. For centuries, coal has proved essential in providing energy to millions of people, but obtaining this coal was more than a difficult task, and it came with many casualties. The average coal miner would work 60 hours a week with 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week. Many suffered from exhaustion and terrible working conditions, which could be fatal. Miners also had to deal with the risk of wall failures, vehicle collision, suffocation, gas poisoning, roof collapse, gas explosion, and coal dust explosions. But the most drastic loss of life was caused by the explosions due to miners' lamps igniting methane gas. Many coal mines were very hot and dusty, and poor ventilation meant that the dust stayed in the air underground. Workers also had to deal with the possibility of flooding, since water usually seeped through the rocks. Along with this, many coal miners also lost their jobs due to lack of work or machines taking over their job. The owners of coal mines needed a workforce that would produce coal as cheaply as possible. A miner was paid according to how much coal he produced, not how many hours he worked. In the mines, space was very limited. This left miners to have to work in cramped conditions, which sometimes caused back problems. Some of the underground railways were as little as 60 to 120 centimeters in height, and mine owners did not want to spend the money to make them bigger. Because of this, small children were often used to pull or push tubes or large baskets of coal on sleds along the low and narrow roadways. A few miners would take their whole families underground and try to get as much coal as possible so they could earn more money. Each member of the family would be given a different job to do, which would help the miner get as much coal as possible. All the struggles and risk made the life of a coal miner very difficult. Water. Okay.
There's a cave-in!
Miners in remote coal camps were often dependent upon the company store, a store that miners had to use because they were often paid only in company scrip, or coal scrip, redeemable at the store, which often charged higher prices than other stores. Many miners' homes were also owned by the mines, although there were company towns that raised the prices of all goods and made eviction a constant threat. These conditions were not the norm for all coal towns. Some owners were paternalistic and others were exploitative. There were few amenities. The houses lacked indoor plumbing, and there were few alternative industries besides railroads and saloon. Miners were usually dedicated to work in the mines at 15 years of age and only lived to their late 50s if they were lucky.
Ugh, it's so early! It's
3 a.m. is not it.
Many hours later.
We've been working all day. It's 11 o'clock.
In the 1950s, coal owners began replacing human miners with digging machines, and misery followed. Around 70,000 West Virginia miners lost their jobs and fled north via the Hillbilly Highway to Akron and Cleveland. In the 1970s, longwall machines could produce 10 times as much coal with half as many workers. And more jobs vanished because mining switched to huge surface pits, where monster machines and explosives do the work. In West Virginia, miners continued falling to the 30,000s in the 1990s, then below 20,000 in the new 21st century. At current production levels, proven coal reserves are estimated to last 147 years. In the 50s and 60s, miners had shovels and newly developed roof bolts. Black lung disease was more common than today, and shafts were very small and cramped. But today, large jackhammers and machines existed, far more productive due to technology, and about a third of the world's electricity comes from coal. Shafts are more open today, which makes it more effective.
Sorry guys, 2 of you are fired. Go home. Machines are taking over. My job.
Coal miners had to wear special uniforms for the job, depending on where they worked. The average coal miner wore a dark shirt, jeans, and leather mining boots. The women wore dresses and puffed sleeves, since that was the style in the late 1800s. Miners had to wear hard plastic helmets with a light on the front to see in dark caves. A miner's light was essential to their work, although they were also lethal. Before 1850, the oil wick cap lamp was a lamp attached to the miner's hat to provide light while they worked. This was highly dangerous because it was easily flammable. By 1915, the electric miner's cap lamp was invented, which is what is most commonly seen as a plastic helmet with a built-in electric light.
Choose your character. Coal miner number 1. Coal miner number 2. Coal miner number 3.
In conclusion, the life of a coal miner was a very difficult lifestyle that many had to live with. Many families depended on this job to make a living, although it came with many complications. Coal miners were at risk for injury and disease, which often led to death. Thankfully, coal mining today is much safer and easier than back in the day, but we will never forget the treacherous lives those coal miners faced.